Markus, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I'm Mike Schmidt. I'm back with you for the alumni videos. And Markus, if you would, why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about your role here at UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School.
All right, first, thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it. So I am the Executive Director for the Center for the Business of Health, and I'm also a professor who teaches in the healthcare concentration.
Perfect. And if you would, Markus, in about 90 seconds or so, talk to us about the highlights of your career.
So I graduated from the MBA school here a long time ago and joined Eli Lilly and Company. I was with Eli Lilly and Company for 25 years, held jobs mostly in marketing and global marketing. I've worked in Dubai, Geneva, Switzerland, Indianapolis, Indiana, Kobe, Japan, and Hong Kong. And about a year and a half ago, retired from Lilly and joined the school full-time.
Awesome. Well, managing such a global career, talk to us about how you developed and maintain networks when you're spanning large geographies and time zones.
Yep. So my father always taught me, he said to me, hey, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's the old adage. And unfortunately, it's fairly true. I kind of started my career thinking, hey, I've got this MBA now, I got these business skills, so I'm going to do a great job, and things will follow from that. And I quickly learned it was probably more important or just as important, I should say, to make sure that I was balancing and networking and getting to know people. So I spent a lot of time doing that. The first lesson actually came from when I graduated from here. There was 4 of us who joined Lilly.
Okay.
And we all got together for a dinner before we left to celebrate joining Eli Lilly and Company. My first job was overseas, so I was overseas. And when I'd come back to headquarters, I made sure that I made a list of people I was going to meet with. And I used coming into America, coming to Indianapolis as an excuse to get in front of high-level executives.
Nice.
Every time I came, one of those guys who was in Indianapolis working, one of those 4, he always met with me at a Jimmy John's. He always made a meeting to meet at Jimmy John's, and I thought this is strange, but we met at Jimmy John's and we'd have a sandwich together and we'd catch up on life, and it was great. Every time I came to headquarters, he did that. Years later, I'm living in Indianapolis and I get a meeting notice saying, hey, let's meet at Jimmy John's. And I was like, hey, Phil, what? You know I live here now. Do we have to do this? He goes, yeah, let's meet. So we met. I said, why are we doing this still? And he goes, and I learned a valuable lesson from him. When he came to Indianapolis and started working, and it's not networking I learned, it's networking that he learned and he taught me. He made a commitment that once a week he was going to have a lunch with someone simply for networking purposes. And it was a brilliant idea. And so I had a lunch with him once every couple months. We would have a lunch because I was on his Rolodex, on his circuit. When he left Lilly, he had met some people through his weekly meetings, and that had spawned onto numerous careers for him. He got jobs out of those because of the network he built. And from that, he also became a board member for Easter Seals. And because I had had lunches with him, he then invited me to become a board member of Easter Seals too. So it just shows you how it's a good practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that story, Markus.
Yeah.
And then, so you were with Lilly for a long period of time. Talk to us about how you managed internal networking to move upward in the organization.
Yeah, it's a pretty sophisticated method I used, Mike. You'll be surprised. So I took a sheet of paper and I made 3 columns of executives and leaders, starting with the CEO, going down to people on my team. And I literally would make lists, like a sales rep would make a targeting list.
Yeah.
And I made lists of people in different divisions who I needed to network to be successful in my job. And what I did was I had a little coding system. And if I already had a good relationship with these people and they supported me and I supported them and we were tight, I crossed them off. They were good to go. If there was someone who it was, I'm not so sure what they think about me and I need to get them to know me myself and to know them, I highlighted them in yellow. And that's who I focused my time and energy on. And if it was someone who we'd already had an interaction and it didn't go well, and I was never going to turn them to be a raving fan of Markus Saba, I literally just erased them off the list with a red pen and avoided them.
Surprising that anybody would find themselves on that part of the list, but I think
there were a few. There are
people that will fall into different categories, kind of like customer segmentation.
Yep.
So Markus, so obviously you had a long, lengthy career at Lilly, but I'm sure you developed networks with people outside of Lilly, even while you were employed. Talk to us about how you build networks outside of an organization, even if you're maybe not looking to move, make a job or a career change.
I think it's incredibly important. It's probably as important to make networks outside the firm as inside. It's healthy, first off. You learn outside, you get outside influences because when you're inside the firm, you get a lot of groupthink. So it's great to have an external perspective coming in. I look back and I think there's a couple of things that I did. Some of them were industry related, where I got on panels and spoke at things and went to conferences. And that's good too, but that's still kind of close. I did 2 things that were completely outside of my healthcare, pharmaceutical industry. One was I coached high school sports. So I was a high school lacrosse coach. And funny enough, I did it because of the love for the sport. And I got to know a lot of the players, and consequently got to know their parents as well. And years later, now that I'm done working at Lilly, one of the coach's parents has a firm that he runs. It's a digital healthcare firm that had done a lot of business with Lilly. And now years later, he's hired me as a consultant to help him in figuring out what his business strategy should be.
That's awesome. So you can think about taking those personal relationships and then putting them into professional
Exactly.
setting as well. Perfect. So Marcus, you've dealt with a lot of students over the years. Talk to us about some things that you've seen students do to really stand out in the recruiting employment process over the years.
Yeah, so it's back to marketing and it's differentiation. So you got to figure out what you can do that'll differentiate yourself, and what's really healthy to do is to figure out what you want to be doing 5 years from now. And if you can chart a path towards that, then you got to figure out who are people who can help you learn about the industry. And the more natural you can make that, and the more authentic you can make that, the more successful it's going to be. Then people will really want to help you. People do want to help you. If you come to them and say, hey, I need your help and I want to get something out of it, but I'm not going to give anything back, that's usually not the strongest relationship. But if you come to them and say, I want to learn, and here's some things I think I can help you with in return, then you got a mutual relationship. It's mutually beneficial, and they will do anything to help you get connected.
Okay, so it's a little bit of giving on both sides.
Exactly.
Okay, and then when you think about somebody who maybe transitioned 3, 4, 5 years from a different organization into Lilly, how did they make that transition or get on your radar to get in that employment process that is outside of the university recruiting process?
Yeah, that's a great point, because it's usually hard when you join a firm. Other people seem and appear to have like really good, strong relationships to get put together and already established. So you got to kind of find a way to break in. What I always did was I volunteered for projects. I would do something that was actually material and had some substance to it. So if there was any project I could volunteer for, and I kind of looked at 2 different projects to jump in. One was something to do with the business we were in. If there was any, like a research project or a pricing project or something like that, I'd jump in and volunteer to be on that, even if it wasn't part of my job responsibility. But then I also looked at what the other activities that the organization has and volunteered to be on things like that. So if there's a soccer club, if there's different organizations that you can be a part of, join those organizations. They're after work hour things, but you get to network with people who aren't in your division necessarily, and then you get to know how other parts of the company work.
Perfect. And talk to us about your transition from the corporate background into the higher education. What really facilitated that transition as you're thinking about your career over time and now working in higher education? Yeah,
and I get that question a lot because I guess people in industry think it's really awesome and fun to come back to your university and teach, and it is. It's a great thing. I have a blast every day. It's a stepwise approach. You have to have a little bit of a methodology to it. So I first started off just coming back and lecturing, and got to know some of the professors and learn how that works. And then one thing led to another, and then you kind of work on your skill, see how you can get better at it. And the better you get at it, then the more things you get asked to do. So there's a little bit of skin in the game you have to put, and a little bit of sweat equity you have to put in. I did it all for love of the game, if you will. I did it all because I enjoyed it, and it was teaching me a skill that I didn't have before. And then once I got good enough at it, then they asked me to do it as a job, actually.
And we're glad you're here, Marcus.
Yeah.
So we got 2 more questions. So talk to us about how you've seen networking evolve over the last 25 years. Obviously the channels have changed from more of a phone call, to using email, but talk to us about how you've seen networking morph over the last 25 years.
I mean, the biggest tool that I use, and I don't know if I'm aging myself or not, but it's LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Everybody's on LinkedIn. You got to be on LinkedIn, have the right profile, and make a huge network. The more, the better. And so I do the old, I just simply get on, and if I'm looking for a certain industry or certain background or someone from an educational experience, I can sort through my list and get connected. What I usually do, though, is I don't know everybody, but you're a few steps removed from knowing everybody. So I will send out a note to 2 or 3 of my friends who I know and trust and ask them, do you know anybody who knows how to do this or anybody with this background? And they'll connect me. And with that little bit of relationship of a connection, it's much easier and more natural to start a conversation versus just cold calling someone and saying, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn. I get plenty of those every day. I don't pay much attention to those. If someone is recommended to me, I then really make a bona fide effort to reach out to the person and respond back.
Yeah, perfect. And LinkedIn is a tool that I know a lot of the students use. So
Okay,
that's great
good.
advice.
Good.
Yeah. So with that, in closing, Marcus, What's sort of one final piece of advice that you would have for these students who are going to start what are going to be long, very meaningful careers?
Yeah, I guess don't underestimate the power of networking. And it's back to that old adage, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And the best way to develop a relationship is don't go and ask the company and say, hey company, I want you to give me a mentee, or a mentor, and I want to be a mentee to someone. That's kind of forced.
Yeah.
The more authentic and natural you can make that relationship, like find someone who has some skills that you don't have and you want to learn from, and ask them, can I work on a project for you? Can I do something for you? I want to learn from you on how you do that. You do that little bit of work, and then you've built that relationship. And then I'm back to my list. You got a check mark on the list because you've built something that's something you can leverage in the future.
Perfect. Well, thanks for bringing it full circle for us,
Thanks for having
Markus.
me.
All right, thanks for joining us, students.
Thanks.